In ancient times, punishment was far more than simple imprisonment or fines. Across civilizations, torture was used as a weapon of fear, confession, and control. Various tools were created with terrifying precision, each designed to inflict pain, humiliation, or slow death. Let's see about some most brutal ancient torture devices. The Brazen Bull. The Brazen Bull was a macabre ancient Greek torture device designed as a hollow, life-sized bronze statue of a bull. To execute a victim, they were forced inside through a trapdoor that was then hermetically sealed, effectively trapping them within a metal chamber. Executioners would light a fire directly beneath the bull's belly, heating the bronze until it became red hot, and slowly roasted the person inside to death. The most horrifying aspect of the device was its acoustic engineering. A system of tubes and pipes in the bull's nostrils distorted the victim's agonizing screams, converting them into the guttural sounds of a bellowing beast for the amusement of the onlookers. Legend holds that the device's inventor, Perillos, was the first to be tricked into the bull to test these acoustics, becoming the inaugural victim of his own cruel creation. Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden is an infamous torture device, typically described as an upright, a coffin-like cabinet designed to resemble a human figure. The interior of the device is lined with sharp metal spikes, attached to the inner hinged doors and the back wall. To operate it, a victim would be forced inside the standing container, and as the executioners slowly pushed the doors shut, the spikes would penetrate the victim's body. These spikes were said to be strategically positioned to pierce painful but non-vital areas, such as the eyes, shoulders, and limbs, while avoiding the heart and major arteries to prevent immediate death. This cruel design ensured the victim remained upright and conscious, suffering from severe bleeding and claustrophobia in the total darkness of the casing, until they eventually died from blood loss or shock. Breaking wheel. The breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, was a brutal method of public execution used throughout Europe, designed to inflict maximum pain before death. The process began by tying the victim to a wooden frame or staking them to the ground with their limbs positioned over wooden blocks. The executioner would then take a heavy, iron-rimmed wagon wheel and drop it forcefully onto the victim's arms and legs, shattering the bones in multiple places while intentionally avoiding vital organs to keep the person alive. Once the limbs were thoroughly broken and pliable, the victim's mangled body was threaded or woven through the spokes of the wheel. Finally, the wheel was hoisted atop a tall pole, leaving the sufferer exposed to the scorching sun, hungry birds, and the elements to die. Slow, agonizing death from shock and dehydration would sometimes last for days. Rack. The rack was one of the most feared torture devices of the Middle Ages, consisting of a rectangular wooden frame raised slightly above the ground. To begin the torture, the victim was laid flat on the frame, with their ankles fastened to a fixed bar at one end and their wrists chained to a rotating axle or windlass at the other. As the executioner turned a handle, the ropes were gradually tightened, using a ratchet system, pulling the victim's limbs in opposite directions. The immense tension initially stretched the muscles and ligaments to their breaking point, but as the force increased, the victim's joints, specifically the shoulders, hips, and knees, would be violently dislocated. This process inflicted excruciating agony and often rendered the victim permanently crippled, as the physical trauma tore muscle fibers and snapped cartilage, leaving the body unnaturally lengthened and broken. Scavenger's daughter. The Scavenger's daughter was a brutal torture device used in the Tower of London that operated on a principle, and it is exactly opposite to the rack. Instead of stretching the body, it violently crushed it. This was invented during the reign of Henry VIII. The device consisted of an A-shaped metal rack with iron shackles designed to bind the victim's head, wrists, and ankles together. Once the victim was positioned in a kneeling posture, the mechanism was tightened, forcing the body to fold into an agonizingly tight ball by compressing the head down towards the knees. The immense physical pressure exerted on the spine and rib cage was unbearable, frequently causing bones to crack and the back to dislocate. Historical accounts describe the compression as being so intense that it caused severe internal hemorrhaging, often forcing blood to burst from the victim's nose and ears due to the crushing force. Judas Cradle. The Judas Cradle was a sadistic torture device, often associated with the Spanish Inquisition, that relied on gravity to inflict excruciating pain. The apparatus consisted of a pyramid-shaped seat with a sharp, pointed apex resting on legs. To begin the torture, the victim was stripped naked, bound by ropes, and suspended above the device using a pulley system. The executioner would then slowly lower the victim onto the spike, inserting the tip into the anus or vagina, which caused immense pressure and stretching of sensitive tissue. The torture could be prolonged and intensified by rocking the victim, dropping them repeatedly on the point, or attaching weights to their legs to force them deeper onto the pyramid. Since the device was rarely cleaned, those who survived the initial physical trauma frequently died later from severe infections caused by the contaminated wood or metal. Pear of Anguish. The Pear of Anguish was a sadistic torture instrument named for its metal body, which resembled the shape of a pear and was divided into 3 or 4 adjustable segments. To operate the device, the executioner would insert the closed instrument into the victim's mouth, rectum, or vagina, depending on the nature of the alleged crime. Once inside, a key or screw at the narrow end was turned, triggering a mechanism that slowly fanned out the metal leaves, expanding the device's width. As the pear opened further, it exerted immense internal pressure, stretching the surrounding flesh beyond its limits. This process was designed to tear sensitive mucous membranes, lacerate internal tissues, and potentially dislocate or break the jawbones, leaving the victim with permanent and gruesome mutilations. Spanish donkey. The Spanish donkey was a simple yet excruciatingly effective torture device that consisted of a raised wooden beam, shaped like an inverted V with a sharp triangular upper edge. To punish the victim, they were stripped naked and forced to straddle the device as if riding a horse, placing their full body weight directly onto the acute angle of the wood. To intensify the torture, executioners would attach heavy weights to the victim's feet or ankles, dragging them downward with increasing gravitational force. The sharp ridge would slowly slice through the sensitive flesh of the perineum and genitals, causing unbearable pain and severe lacerations. If the weights were heavy enough, the device could eventually sever nerves and arteries, or even slice vertically through the victim's pelvic region, making it one of the most brutal methods of punishment historically used by military forces and the Inquisition. Hanging cage. The hanging cage, often referred to as gibbeting, was a method of slow execution and public humiliation, where a victim was locked inside a tight metal framework shaped roughly like a human body. Once secured within the heavy iron straps or lattice, the cage was hoisted into the air and suspended from a gallows, city wall, or tree, leaving the prisoner completely exposed to the elements. Unlike quick executions, this device was designed to kill via exposure, thirst, and starvation. The victim suffered under the scorching sun or freezing cold while being unable to move, sit comfortably, or defend themselves. As the prisoner slowly weakened over days or even weeks, they became helpless targets for insects and scavenging birds that would peck at their living flesh. The body was typically left rotting in the cage long after death, serving as a grim and decomposing warning to the public until the skeletal remains eventually crumbled away.